Dave Taylor is the CEO and co-owner of LDR Leadership. He learned extensive leadership skills through his service in the United States Army. He served in the Special Operations Forces in the 75th Ranger Regiment. He also served on the Joint Special Operations Command as a Ranger Strike Force commander. In that position, he led teams across 8 combat deployments. Through this experience, Dave has taken his ability to lead individuals from the military to the boardroom and the office. Today, he will discuss the critical importance of team design and working with a multi-generational workforce. Please welcome Dave Taylor.
Good morning. Nancy is full of surprises. I don't know where she got all that. How's everybody this morning? That was really not motivating. Presentations will continue until morale improves. How's everybody this morning? Excellent. Thank you very much. That's much better. I don't know if Heidi's in here or not. Great national anthem. I don't know about anybody else. I still get goosebumps every time I hear the national anthem. We may not be perfect, but I've been a lot of different places, and we are far better than anyone else. So thank you very much for having me tonight or today. This tells you when you travel, you just don't really know what time of the day it is. I'm really looking forward to today, and gentlemen, if we can throw up the slides, we will get going. As mentioned, my name is Dave. I appreciate gentlemen moving this. I just cannot stand still. I have to walk back and forth. I'm wearing glasses, which is unusual because I was hoping to see names because I'm going to call on you. So is that Gary? Gary, you're in trouble. You can see even with glasses, I have to reach over to see. So thanks for having me. I imagine I'm excited to be in front of people, like in a big crowd again. It's very exciting. I will say the one thing I don't miss is airport travel. So I still traveled during COVID, and it was great. There was nobody in the airport. Nobody sat next to you. If you wanted to go get a beverage, water, of course. You didn't have to wait in line. Now it's just packed. It's crazy. So there's some things it's funny you get used to. I'm really looking forward to speaking today about leadership for generations for a couple reasons. One, I'm passionate about this. I've made my own mistakes in life, and I love sharing these things. The more we can share and talk about it, I think even the better. So a little bit of background. You got some of it already. So I did spend 24 years in the Army, mostly in special operations community, enlisted in 1991, 92, and then retired 4 years ago. Led diverse and generational teams from 30 to 1,000 across the U.S., Iraq, and Afghanistan. Not vacation spots, so if you're looking for a summer vacation, I would not recommend the latter two places. I don't plan on visiting them ever again, most likely. Now, why do I have diverse and generational highlighted? Because we're talking about generational teams. And the way we're going to build this foundation is when we think about diverse, I guarantee everybody saw diverse and they probably thought of something right away. We're going to talk about thinking. Generations. Do generations think differently? Yes, absolutely. I mean, we're going to talk about it, but all generations think differently. I got a master's in leadership from Georgetown University at the young age of 47, because there's nothing better than having 2 kids, trying to build a business and going back to school. I'm 48 now, so if you're doing math, I just graduated from Georgetown last year. Learning is forever. As leaders, we constantly have to learn. The moment we think we know everything, the moment we start to fail. We get complacent. Things change over time, and we have to be willing to accept that. Leading and following mountaineering. So you saw, I love mountain climbing. Some people think that's my fix now, my adrenaline fix, because I no longer am in the Army. I don't know, I just love getting out there, and there's nobody else except for me and my guide. But there's so many parallels between life and mountaineering. The last 4 years, so I retired in 2017, the last 4 years I've been establishing, growing, leading a business, largely within the National Rural Electric Co-op Association and cooperatives. And I will tell you, we are a small, generational, and diverse team. And I tell you what, it is probably harder to do that than anything I've done in the military, because the parallels. I have a couple instructors that are in their 60s. I have partners, bosses that are mid-30s. I have a team that's 24, 25. Do you think we all see things differently? Oh, let me tell you, there's sometimes you just like, I can't, I got to go have a drink. Like, I can't handle this. Especially when you have the one side of the spectrum and the other side of the spectrum arguing amongst each other. I consider myself I am Generation X. I'm like in the middle. I'm like, I'm just going to watch you two go at this. It's kind of like the Generation X. We can kind of be in the middle in all this. And I'm about to be an empty nester. My daughter is going to be a sophomore. My son is going to be a freshman. So tomorrow, we are actually leaving, going up to Acadia National Park for our last kind of hurrah. And then I'm going to figure out what the hell I'm going to do with the rest of my life because there's not going to be any kids in the house. I'm really leaning towards getting an RV and just driving all over the place. And then a couple things I've learned. I've constantly learned that adaptation is the best way to succeed. We have to adapt. Things are going to are things different now than they were 5 years ago, 10 years ago? Shoot, how about 18 months ago are things different? Yes, drastically different. We have to adapt, and we have to learn. In all of this, I've made plenty of mistakes in my life, more than I can count. And in many ways, it's only failure if we what? What's that? It's only failure if we what? If we refuse to learn. That's right. Thank you. It's only failure. If we fail once, that's fine. But if we don't learn from it, then we really fail. Otherwise, we just learn and develop. I love this quote from John Smith, an author. Thriving leaders are ones surrounded by diverse people from different generations. Research is very clear that diverse teams make better decisions. Now, just because you have a diverse team does not necessarily mean it's better. You've got to have the culture. You have to have the inclusion. Everybody's got to be part of the process. But it's very clear. We're going to talk about this, right? We're going to talk about why diversity of thought is important in this prospect, particularly when we think about everything that's been mentioned so far this morning. Is change coming? Is change happening? Yes, it is. You know, there's certain things we can't control, right? We can't control nature. We can't control other people. We can't control time. What can we control? How we react, our response to things. Whether we like it or not, sometimes we just have to learn how to develop and move forward. So a couple things I want to start off with. I pulled this from the military. I really like this. And this is kind of like the individual leadership aspect. We think all of us about individual leaders. There's a leadership model, character. So if you want, how do we study? How do you learn more about being a leader? You know, there's character, there's presence, intellect, leads, develops, achieves. What are the competencies? Achieves is great, right? At the end of the day, we do have to get results. What I like to focus here is develops. Creates a positive environment, develops others, always learns. That's what everybody's doing today and tomorrow. We have to develop ourselves, but we also have to set the conditions to develop others. We have to set the condition to develop our team. And this right here, I don't know if this was Eisenhower. I know it wasn't Patton because he clearly hit somebody. You don't lead people by hitting them over the head. That's assault, not leadership. Now, how many of us, when we first started off in the workforce, that would not have been said? You know, how many of us said, you know, you shut up, do your job. Don't ask questions. Anybody? It's okay, you can raise your hand. It's a fact. When I first joined the Army, or not the first time, when I became an officer, I walked down the hallway. This was when I was in one of the Ranger battalions, because someone told me my boss wanted to see me. So I walked down the hallway, and anybody just get a feeling like something's not right, where you're somewhere you're like, something is just not right. I walked down that hallway, and there's nobody in the hallway. Nobody. And I get about halfway through, I'm like, something bad's about to happen to me. Sure enough, my Ranger platoon jumped out, zip-tied me, right? Zip-tied my hands behind my back, pulled my pants down right below my butt, put a whole bunch of boot polish on my butt cheeks, took me to my commander's office and set me on the couch. Now, could that happen today? No, it could not. Now, back then it happened, and I just rolled with it because ultimately my company, my unit was looking at what? What were they going to gauge? My reaction, my response. It was a test. I knew it was a test. That could not happen today. Not right or wrong, it's just different. Things just change, and we have to realize over time things are going to be different. Now, that's the individual level. Now we get into this, the team effectiveness model. Now, are boards teams? Yes, boards are teams. So it doesn't matter whether you've been on a sports team or not, boards are teams. You operate and function as a team. This was extrapolated, that's a big word for me, and I'm surprised I got it out on one shot, from a book called Leading Teams, and on the bottom there, one of the professors I became good friends with at Georgetown created this team effective model, Dr. Michael O'Leary. And you can see on the bottom, the two essentials, right? The two essentials, and you know, it was mentioned earlier, a lot of new board members. Good design and compelling direction. What we're saying here is these two things, it doesn't matter how good your effective process is, how good your supportive context is, how good your expert coaching is, those three things cannot make up for bad team design and compelling direction. What's your mission statement? First sentence in your mission statement says what? Leadership, expertise, and now everybody thinks I'm quizzing them now. Unity of purpose, right? Leadership, expertise, unity of purpose. Unity of purpose is compelling direction. What is the purpose? If everybody, the Chicago Bears, I'll use Chicago, I'm a Cowboys fan, so it doesn't matter. We just think we're good every year, and what happens? Absolutely nothing. But the Bears, when they start off the season, what's their goal? Win the Super Bowl, right? There is a very clear purpose for teams and boards. Boards, your directive, who are you primarily supporting? What is your purpose? Who's your target? Your members, right? The members. Decisions are made based off of what is good for the members. So these two things we have to think about. And with that, within team design, there's some key things, right? Team size. Team size does matter. There is plenty of science and research behind what size of a team is good. Can you have too many? Yes. Anybody want to take a guess on what the research team size is a good team size? What do you think? Throw a number out there. What? 14? 12? 5. Who said 5? 5. So 4.6 is roughly the size they say is the best for multiple reasons. There's a whole chart. You can say the more people you have, the more levels of coordination that are required, the more capability you can get into groupthink. Now, is groupthink a potential risk in boards? It is, particularly if boards have been around a long, long time, because we've all been together. We start thinking like we want to disrupt everything. Let's just go with the flow. Nature of roles, scope, diversity. Now, cognitive diversity is what I'm talking about here. So, what do we see and think first? So when I say diversity, what do people think about? What word comes to mind? Race, what else? Race, gender, anything else? Yeah. Age, someone to say age? Education? What's that? I'm sorry, say it again, sir. Occupation. Yes, these are all good things. When I do this in a poll, 90% of the people immediately jump to race. And then it's gender. Now look, when I was in the military, we had, who served anybody else serve in the military? In your show of hands? I mean, we used to have to do like 1,000 briefings on every topic known to man. So much time, like we couldn't even get anything done. So we'd have diversity training. Immediately at the time I went to, we're talking about race. Not what we're talking about here today. Does it matter? Yes, demographics matter. If you take me, I grew up outside of Annapolis, Maryland. You take a version of me, it grows up in central Illinois. Even though we look alike, are we going to think different? Yes, we absolutely are going to think. So in that case, are we diverse in how we think? Yes, we are diverse in how we think. So how is diversity defined? And again, this is important because this is all about understanding how we can get a better understanding of the people that we're going to work with. The challenges, I mean, we mentioned earlier, right? Democrats versus Republicans. Now, obviously, we could just go down a whole different show on that. But we think about things differently. There's a difference in understanding. So the American Bar Association writes it as this: policies, practices, programs. So it's stating the change of rhetoric of inclusion into empirically measurable change. Anybody know what I mean by that? So if you have a policy on diversity, what does that mean? Can you check the block? That's pretty much what it's saying, right? In legal terms, if you have a policy, so on and so forth. Now, I like Oxford's, which is the state of being diverse, variety, a range of different things. Let me tell you, I like this much better. When I was in the service, the military is a demographic representation of the country. I had people from rural Iowa. I had people from inner city Chicago. Very diverse. Everybody thought about things differently. Now, this is important, though. Diversity is what we measure. Inclusion is what we feel. So, an example, my daughter was a lacrosse goalie in high school, starting lacrosse goalie in high school. When COVID kicked off, it kind of canceled the year. She wasn't that upset. I'm like, well, why weren't you that upset? She's like, well, I didn't really necessarily like the team. Why didn't she necessarily like the team? What was missing? She was on a team, but what did she not feel? Included. She didn't feel included, and she was the starting goalie. But why didn't she feel included? She wasn't a partier. She didn't go out and drink. She didn't do all kinds of things that everybody else did, so she doesn't feel included. So, as a board member, who's been on the board over 30 years? Raise your hands. All right. Some people are like, I don't know if I want to raise my hands to that one or not. You look amazing. You look like you're 30. So now if you take someone brand new to the board, if you've got a board that's been out for a long time, they've got a lot of people, and someone new comes on the board, isn't it important we have to embrace that new person because we have to make them feel included? If I come and join your board, or let's say you jump in on my military unit, it would be kind of awkward, right? Like, I don't know if I know a lot about this, I don't know a lot about that, so we can stay back. We really have to work to make sure we're including people because that's where we get inputs and thoughts, what we're thinking, how we think. Okay, so cognitive diversity is what we're talking about. Differences in knowledge, mental models, heuristics, representation to better the outcomes. What it clearly says is if we're trying to establish something, a very specific task, diversity of thought on teams, on boards makes a difference. Now, if we're hiring and we just need someone to fold pizza boxes in an hour, what are we trying to do? Do we care about anything other than what? They got 2 hands. How fast can they fold pizza boxes? That's it. That's very specific. Now, if we're trying to establish a pizza chain, is the person who can fold the pizza box necessarily exactly what we need to help establish and grow a business? No, not me. What else do we need? Yeah, and I don't know anything about, we start throwing numbers up on the wall. Whew, it's like the Matrix, the red pill or the blue pill. It's like, I don't know what I'm looking at. So if we're building something, I need to bring someone on my team who maybe has a business background, has established something, is finance, understands supply chain management. So we bring people on the team that can help us grow. What is occurring a lot in cooperatives? What is, I guess to say the rage? What is the big word out there that starts with a B? Are you telling me nobody's going to say broadband? Broadband often talked about in the last year and a half? Broadband. So broadband's happening. Is EV happening at a certain point? EV's happening, solar, wind. Some of you may have this already. So when we think about this, maybe as we're looking at bringing somebody on, maybe they don't know anything else about anything, but they know about broadband or they know about EV. Have to think about, can they contribute to our overall purpose, which is to support what? Members. So we have to think about when we're hiring and we're doing things, how can we look at things differently to help us solve a specific problem or task? Anybody familiar with the iceberg framework? Anybody ever heard of this? All right, did someone say yes? You am? Okay. Then you can't answer. All right, so, but you can answer this one. Show of hands. I can't even see that far with my glasses. All right, show of hands. This is the circle of trust. Who has ever walked down the road, the street, the mall, the store, in this hotel, seen somebody and judged them just based off what they saw? Absolutely, we do it all the time. And with an iceberg, what's the largest part of the iceberg? The part underneath. So we see skin, age, gender, physical qualities, and we immediately start doing this. We selection bias. Oh, this person looks like this. Bam, categorize them. Do we know anything about them? Not at all. But we do it. We immediately see these things and we categorize somebody, but what we miss are all these other things. Race, religion, social norms, education, social class, ancestry, all these things we miss because it's below the waterline. And in order to find out what's below the waterline with people, we have to do what? Communicate, talk to them, get to know them, because this can be dangerous if we get up to this part right here where you don't know how to operate this. The top of the waterline. We judge people because we see it. And then it's not necessarily our fault because we have biases. So raise your hands if you think you have biases towards people. Yeah, absolutely do. It's just nature, and it's okay. It's now challenge yourself. So the next time you walk around and you see somebody and you immediately judge it, you got to say, why do I have that bias? I don't know anything about this person, but I have a bias. And challenge yourself to maybe understand why and maybe get to know that person. Okay, volunteer, give me three Three hands. Show me three hands. Three hands. I will call on you. At this point, you're like, I don't trust you, Dave, at all. Okay, I've got one. Oh, yes, right there in the, is that teal? Yes, you're looking right at me. You can't hide right on the end. Yes, two. I need one more. One more. Gentleman right here in the hat. Okay, describe these two people. This person went to Western University, drives a truck, and a NASCAR fan. What do you think about? Probably male, probably redneck. You, sir. Good old boy. Ma'am, you? Okay. Show of hands. Who would go out to the bar and have a drink with this person on the right? Okay. Some people are like, oh, I'm not doing that at all. Okay. All right. Three other people. Let's come to this side of the room. Three other people. Who's my volunteers? Yes, I know you wanted to volunteer. All right. Two more. I need two more. So one more. Okay. All right, right back there. Perfect. Okay. Now this person likes fruity drinks, owns a cat, not a gun owner. Go ahead. What's the first thought that came to your mind? This is a circle of trust. You don't even want to say it. What is it? What do you think? Probably a woman. Feminine. Those were mine. All right, who do you think this is? Who do you think I'm describing right here? You're looking right at the person that can fit into all those. I went to West Virginia University. I got a Ram truck. I'm a diehard NASCAR fan. Tony Stewart, now Chase Elliott. Like fruity drinks? Yeah. Did I like beer in college? Yes, it was cheap. But then I realized I could drink vodka and feel fine the next day. My daughter got a cat when she was 3. That cat is 17 years old. That son of a gun is still around. I can't get rid of the cat. What am I going to do for, it's my daughter's cat. Of course, you wouldn't know it because she doesn't feed it. She doesn't change the litter or anything. And I'm not a gun owner. Do I like guns? Yes. I mean, heck, I spent my entire life shooting guns. It could be because I live in Maryland. It's probably like an act of Congress to get a gun in Maryland, but I don't have one. But do you see what everybody did right there? This person right here, no one on the right would have probably thought it was me because they know I was in the Army. I climbed mountains, went to West Virginia, so therefore if I was in the Army, I'm a gun-toting, flag-waving redneck. I mean, I'm not saying it's not true, but there's all these, except for the gun-toting part, except for this other side is also me also. So we just don't know people unless we get to know them, but we can categorize people very, very quick. Do we categorize millennials? Yes. Do millennials categorize baby boomers? Yes. Yeah, I heard no yes, right? And it's not right or wrong, it's different. We got to figure out how to work together. And the only way we can do that is get to know people because you don't know how many other people are, then I could have thrown another old column there, military, XYZ, it's all in there. So we have unconscious biases. We just stereotype. It's just natural. And it's outside our own consciousness. I mean, what influences, when we grow up, I mean, I would not want to grow up now because what is nonstop 24/7? Social media, right? So imagine being a kid. And anybody seen the show Social Dilemma on Netflix? Yeah, it's terrible, right? I mean, whatever you look at, you're going to get constantly fed that information. Constantly fed. So if we get constantly fed that's called what? Confirmation bias. We get confirmation bias on exactly what we want to see. People get influenced. People judge people. And they don't know anything about them other than what XYZ social media influencer, so and so forth said. But again, on this bottom part, social groups. I was an adamant, when I was in the Army, it's like, daggone millennials. I didn't know anything. I just kept hearing people talk about millennials. Now, my entire team minus one instructor is millennials. And I'm like, man, I'm glad I don't have to compete with them. Can they frustrate me sometimes? Yes, they can frustrate me sometimes, but they're extremely talented. And we're going to talk about that here in a little bit. So, a model to demonstrate some of this. Who makes a better pairing? If you look at this, who makes a better pairing? Mike and Abby, Abby and Anthony, Mike and Anthony. Who do you think makes a better pairing? People can just throw names out there. Abby and Anthony. Who said Abby and Anthony? Anybody else? So lucky I cannot see people's names right now. Okay, Abby, why Abby and Anthony? Yeah, their strengths and weaknesses aligned. That's perfect. So, look, if we just need to solve a math problem and Mike and Abby were great at math, then let's just get Mike and Anthony. Now, this is only as good as the problem we are trying to solve, right? It's got to be about the problem we are trying to solve. Abby and Anthony bring different skill sets to the table. So again, if it's just a math problem, that's great. We add something else in there, it's going to be completely different. A great example is a guy I work with, Rich in JD, younger, former military, established the larger LDR growth partners. Excuse me. We were all working together to build the company, LDR leadership. And then we hired in January Allison for sales. Allison comes on and she's like rattling off, oh, have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? And what am I thinking? I'm like, oh, yes. But that's just my internal reaction. I'm saying sit down. Why am I saying sit down? She's coming up with ideas that I didn't what? I didn't think about. Were they good ideas? Yes. They're good. She had really good ideas because she was looking at things completely different than the way myself, Rich, and JD were. She's grown up in sales, so she knows this. Meanwhile, I'm hiding, right? I'm like, I don't know, we've tried this. Fortunately, I know enough about myself at this point where I can kind of step back and then come back and say, yes, it's good. Now, do I care if she knows, if she can deliver the product? Do I care if she knows the ins and outs of it? Or do I care that she knows how to sell and engage in market? That's the skill she's bringing to the table. So she makes us better because she's challenging us to think about things we have not thought about in the past. So a gentleman, Scotty Page, calls this the diversity bonus when we're thinking about the cognitive diversity of everybody, demographics, generations, etc. So this is an example in Afghanistan in 2010, 2011. I ran a joint special operations command center or a tactical operations center. And I had HR, I had intelligence, I had operations, I had logistics, I had NSA, I had interagency, I had government, I had all kinds of people in that group. Did I care about how old they were, what their race was, or what their gender was? I shouldn't. You're right. Do you think I did? No. What did I care about? Can they do their job? That is what I care about. Can they do their job? And they were demographically very diverse. But I cared about, can they do their job? Because their job, our job in there, was solely to support the men and women who were leaving the quote-unquote proverbial wire to go out and close with and destroy the enemy. That was our purpose. So, no different when we're looking at cooperative headquarters, G&Ts, our purpose. What are we doing to ensure the member is set? And do we have the right team in place to do that? And is the team diverse enough of thought to ensure we avoid the groupthink traps and other traps? This was an amazing time for me because it was just like, wow, I'm just looking at so many different people and how talented they really are. So you can look at the iceberg framework a little bit different, right? So we got the top race, gender, age, physical capabilities. That's demographic diversity. That's what we see. Below it, all these other things we don't see. That's cognitive diversity, what we know and how we think. Representation, I'm like, all right, men, I'm asking men this. Let's see who's going to be honest. Who has ever said, let me get a woman's opinion? I am the only one in this room that's going to admit I've said, let me get a woman's opinion. I know there's a couple that probably don't want to raise their hand. Now, let me ask you this. Young lady, do you represent every woman's opinion in this room? You represent who? Yes. We can fall into these traps. Oh, I need to get a guy's opinion. Well, sure, my opinion might be different because I did X, Y, Z. Maybe I'm a smoker. Ask me my opinion about smoking. It's going to be different than someone that's not. So we have to be aware that when we're asking opinions and thoughts, we're asking specifically about that person's opinion. So how's that tie into this? We talked about good design, diversity, how we think, and how we think also leads directly into the generational aspect. So we did a lot of research last year when COVID hit, when we were talking with NRECA and some of our cooperative partners. We kept hearing about millennials. They just ask all these questions. So we're like, all right, well, we've got some time on our hands. We're not doing anything now. Let's study this. So when I say baby boomers, what words come to mind? What are some words that come to mind with baby boomers? Old, conservative, what else? Anything else? Old, conservative. All right, tech challenged, set in their ways, rigid, conservative, arrogant. What about Generation X? Cool? Did someone say cool? Yeah, exactly. Generation X is cool. Lazy, independent, skeptical, competitive, arrogant. All right, millennials. What do we think about millennials? Nobody wants to say anything about a millennial? Shy. Raise your hand if you're 38 or younger. If you're 38 or younger, you are a millennial, believe it or not. So, needy, lack of respect for authority, self-absorbed, social media focused, entitled, snowflake, tech obsessed, sensitive. Who thinks millennials are tech obsessed? Raise your hand if you think they're tech obsessed. Okay, now everybody show me their cell phone. Yeah, crazy, right? And who would have a heart attack if their cell phone disappeared? My daughter. And she'd be like, oh, Dad, you're dumb. It's like, it's just like this. That's fine. It's just different. So we talk about generations defined, same age, historical events. Historical events feed into how we think, right? COVID is going to feed into this generation. September 11th obviously impacted me. World War II, Vietnam, all the great financial crisis in 2008. It just affects things, right? So if you look at this is kind of where things are at, in terms of those time frames. And they're different. And everybody thinks different. It's going to be important. All right, quiz time again. Who wants to read? Any English majors? At this point, nobody is in the back there. I saw a hand. Okay, so you get to read this first one. Can you see it? Or were you just waving to me? The light's blinding me. All right, who wants to read this out loud? I know you can all read it together, but nobody's going to read it out loud? You, sir, looked right at me. Eye contact. You're in trouble. What year do you think that is? Just throw one out. 2000. Anybody else want to throw something out? 1942. Newsweek, 1993. Newsweek, 1993. Okay, everybody read this one. I won't put someone on the spot. Everybody read this one. All people in the world are part of one electronically based intercommunicating network. Young people everywhere. What year? Somebody throw it out there. What do you think? At this point, nobody trusts me. I got it. What year? Who said 70? That's not even fair. You, sir, get the rest of you get a week off. 1970, I was -2. And people are like electronically based, but again, it's all perception, right? Just think about when first computers came out. It's all how we view things, right? It's all just going to be where we stand at a certain point. All right, last one. What do you think? Bad manners, contempt for authority, disrespect. What's that? Plato? Could that be right now? Yeah, or it could be Socrates, 400 BC. What's the point? What is the takeaway? Nothing's changed, right? Every generation is going to talk about the previous generation over and over again. When we were younger, our parents talked about our generation. When they were younger, they talked about their generation. Is there differences? Yeah, absolutely there are differences. But we have to figure out how to work together because we can bring a lot of things to the table. When we look at this, 1994, 3 generations working, silent boomer and Gen X. 2020, 5 generations now working in the workforce. And what takes up the majority? Millennials, right? Us Gen Xers and boomers, we're starting to get pushed to the side. That's just nature. At one point, we were pushing people to the side. Workforce by age, 94, you can see the numbers. 2020, look at the increase, 24% 55 and older. Why are people working longer? We're also doing what? Living longer. The cost of living. College, it's out of control. 4 years in college for me is 1 year of college for my son at the same university. It is insane. So viewpoints change past and present. The younger we are, is our cognitive ability a certain way? Yeah, we have a higher cognitive ability. I know we don't want to admit it. As we get older, does our cognitive ability decrease? Yes, even though we don't like to admit it. Now, the older we get, do we get stuck in our ways? Yes, we get crystallized in how we're thinking about things. So imagine a workforce that's on this paradigm. Is there going to be conflict? Yes. We just have to communicate. We have to communicate. I had a gentleman who wrote everything down on his calendar, and that's the way he wanted to do it. A 25-year-old assistant, he would send calendar invites on the computer. And he called me up like, Dave, what is this calendar invite? What am I supposed to do with this? I'm like, just don't worry about it. And Dylan would be like, well, I don't understand why you just can't do it. It's fine. I just care about can he do it. But there's differences. We have to communicate and figure this out. We'll move through these a little bit quicker here. Expert, how many hours to be an expert? Anybody know how many hours it takes to be an expert? 10,000, right, is what they say is 10,000. So everybody in here is probably at the top of the mountain. 10,000 hours being an expert. Rosy retrospection, anybody know what that is? Things from the past look much better now than they did when we were doing it. When I was in Ranger School, the last hard Ranger School was which course? Of course, it was the one I went through. Ranger School's been easy since I went through it. Now, we think about work. We get new workers in. Things weren't as easy. We used to be young workers. We used to have these things. We have to help fill the gaps. We can't expect our young workers to perform to the standards we set for ourselves. I flew in yesterday because I like to be here in the morning. I had a guy who was instructing this week. He flew in like on a Monday night to instruct Tuesday morning. I couldn't do that. That would freak me out. I can't hold people to my standards. Do we need to have a standard in place for people? Yes. But we have to make sure, hey, what's the skill level? What's the time? Do create room for failure. Fail forward, right? If somebody does something and if we drop the hammer on them, what have we effectively done? We basically probably kept them from doing anything else after that, right? So we have to create standards, hold people to standards. Military special operations units are good because there's a clear standard and they're held to the standard. We have to create these things and not hold people to the same standard. There's also reverse mentorship. Anybody ever young in the workforce at one point in time would be like, if they would just listen to me, I have a good idea. Ever happen to anybody? Yes. Well, the majority of us in this room are now on the opposite side where we can now not do what was done to us and listen to someone who's just starting off because they are at the what? Front lines of things. Things change. The older we get up in the workforce and position, we lose a little sense of reality because things change. The way we did it 20 years ago is not the same anymore. Essential. All these things. This is why it's essential to good design. As we're designing our team, we have to realize the diverse nature of our thought. Generations. We bring all these things to the table to make it good, to make it strong. We have to communicate. And I'll leave it with this. What I think matters briefly before they come up and tackle me off. Generally speaking, be yourself. Don't ever try to be something that you're not. You will fail every time. Trust, trust, trust. And that goes both ways. Who starts off their marriage with, hey, sweetheart, let's go out on a date. I don't trust you at all. Nobody starts off with that, right? Trust but verify. Trust but verify. It's okay. Lead with trust until someone gives you a reason not to trust. Be vulnerable to your strengths and weaknesses. Exploit them. It is okay to not know it all. It is okay to not know it all. Play off it. The more comfortable you are not knowing you're good at everything and you can reach out. You, sir, yes. You are really good at this. I'm comfortable asking you this question because you're going to fill a gap for us. Lead the way you want to be led. Be honest and upfront. People know when you're full of BS. They can see right through it. Be willing to listen, learn, accept ideas up and down your team. Diverse ideas are powerful. Last two things. Remember, for all those who have been around a day or two like me, we were young once and in the workforce. Remember what that felt like. For everybody that's young and new in the workforce, those of us who have been around a day or two, we have a lot of experience. Check it out. Learn from that experience. Keep the purpose at the forefront, the members. And then lastly, leading is hard. It is lonely. However, it is one of the most humbling, honorable, and rewarding and influential things you will ever do. Own it, enjoy it, and embrace it. And with that, thank you very much for listening and engaging this morning. Thank you very much. I don't believe we can do questions, correct?